Hello, Grand Strand. This is Richard Florczak, the private chef to the stars, and welcome back to Talking About Food. Reminder, it's the only, I repeat, only local food commentary show on the Grand Strand that talks specifically about restaurants, food trucks, festivals, and farmers markets. We'll talk about some of your favorites, some of my favorites, and maybe on occasion the not-so-favorites. Actually, I was just having a conversation with the guest coming up about talking about places that we don't like. That's probably not going to happen. So my policy is if I don't like something, I'm probably not going to talk about it. It's just not fair to the business. They do have off days. So, and please remember that I cooked in a home most of my career, albeit for some of the biggest box office stars in the world, but I still cooked in a home. So you and I have a lot in common. So always remember this: you are your family's private chef, which is why I'll also be talking about major kitchen appliances, small appliances. We had Chef Joe Bonaparte on the show last week, and he was telling us about some of the things he has at home. It was so funny. And from time to time, I'll be interviewing some of my celebrity friends, and whether celebrity or not, the topic will always be food, because nothing brings people together like great food. And speaking of great food, I've got a great chef in studio with me today. So grateful she could come in on her busy schedule. Her name is Chef Jamie Daskalis.
You said it right.
Of course. She is the chef owner of all three Johnny D's Waffles and Benedict locations. That's amazing to me. And recently opened the Tasting Room on 9th in Myrtle Beach. She was voted Best Chef Grand Strand Magazine. She's been on the Food Network, voted Best Waffles in South Carolina, and she doesn't have any visible tattoos. Chef Jamie Daskalis, welcome to Talking About Food.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So it says in your bio, you were immersed in the restaurant business from an early age. I always like to zero in on the origin. Like, what was it in particular that attracted you to the food business?
My dad was in the restaurant business since he was 16. He started on the cruise ships, and then him and his family settled in New Jersey, and he bought his first diner called the Hills Diner at 17 years old.
Wow.
We literally grew up in the restaurant. So once I got out of that stroller thing, I was running around behind the counters and stuff.
Yeah.
So we literally grew up in the restaurant business, and then I started working at about 13.
For people that don't understand this, the restaurant business is so much more than just the food. When did your passion for the culinary arts come into play?
So as I was finishing high school, it was time, I had already been working in the restaurants. I did a lot of front of the house stuff, but then I started getting intrigued a little bit more in the back of the house. And when it was coming time to decide what I wanted to do for continuing education past high school, I was having a little bit of a hard time thinking to go into to take classes of, hospitality, how to run a restaurant.
Right.
I've been doing it already since I was 13.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly like bookwork. And I just remember one time I was watching my dad make a spanakopita. It just, in that moment, I was like, I'm going to go to culinary school.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think that's the best thing for me, as far as what I knew I was good at. And I was good at hands-on. And at that point I had started to learn a little bit in the kitchen, and I really liked that working.
Right.
In the front, I was really good in the front of the house. I could expo and get the food out and run the floor and everything. I just kind of liked the idea of being in the kitchen. So when I told my dad, I was like, I think I'm going to go to culinary school. I've been going back and forth about what I want to do. I was having a hard time thinking about getting into just a regular college and taking math courses and stuff like that over again. The thought of that was really debilitating to me.
Yeah.
And
how did your father react to that?
He loved it. He
really
loved it.
great.
He was happy. But when I got there, it was just so amazing. And I just loved learning about everything. And every 3 weeks we took a new class. So it was just exhilarating. And then I just started really loving it and just being able to follow these recipes and coming up with, and I have a sweet tooth.
Oh, tell me about it.
So it was like,
don't get
it was
me
like,
started, please.
Cookies class and cakes class and bread. Bread's class was my favorite. When I learned how to make bread, when I got out of school, my dad put me to start working at Coney Island, and it was one of his smaller restaurants. He needed someone to run it. It was, mishmash of managers up until then. But when I got there and I had to start running a restaurant, stuff like that, I was like, man, my baking background is not going to help me on this menu.
Yeah.
So then I had to kind of teach myself all the culinary stuff. And I really liked that. And I was like coming up with these amazing recipes, different sauces, different sandwiches, different flavor combinations. And the guests were just slowly loving it. And like business started picking up. And I feel like that's when my passion really started growing.
I zeroed in on something that you just said. You said the guests started loving it.
Yeah.
I have this phrase, and you may think it's oversimplified. My attraction to this business was making people happy through food.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. And I think that's what gave me my longevity in the private chef world. Could you have accomplished what you've accomplished had you not gone to the Culinary Institute of America in New York?
Being that my business now, my restaurants now, breakfast is a lot of baking and pastry, like especially when we first started, some of the things that I was doing there, and just like the waffle batters and stuff like that. So a basic fundamental knowledge of that baking and stuff and the things that I learned there did bring me over to where I feel like maybe some of my recipes and some of the troubleshooting I've had to do over the years would not have been as easily done, or maybe I wouldn't even have known if I didn't take those classes. Like we make challah bread for our French toast fresh in house, and we have issues that, the weather, the water, you make bread. So, when my guys come to me and they say the challah bread's doing this, after we sit and talk for a little bit, we usually can come up with a solution. And it was funny because just down in our Surfside store, they were having trouble with the challah bread, and one of the cooks, she was asking me, and we kind of troubleshoot a couple things back and forth. And I went down there a week later. She's like, I did what you said, and I haven't had a problem since.
Yeah.
So like those little things that I learned, and then when I need that information, I can go in my brain and I can find it.
Yeah.
And just like, and also just different things when I go out and I see restaurants doing stuff on the baking and pastry side, I can appreciate it so much more.
Yeah, no, there's so much more that goes into that. I mean, it truly is where the artistry is. Thankfully, there's only a minute amount of 1-star reviews. What happens when you get a 1-star review?
Well, obviously, you're never excited when you get a 1-star review. And personally, I've taken them very personal over the years. I don't so much anymore.
Why is that?
Okay, I mean, a variety of things, but mainly is I don't have the energy to take it personal anymore. Yeah. Because there's not a lot of them. I have thousands of reviews on Google. And with thousands of reviews, I still have like a 4.6, I think. So
that's unheard of. To just so the listeners know this, to have that many reviews and still hold a 4.5-star review average is unheard of. It's amazing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So like I have had to learn, like, you can't please everyone.
Everyone, yeah. Don't even try.
And okay, if someone doesn't like it, it could be that maybe you did mess up that day.
Yeah.
But would I prefer the guests giving us the opportunity to fix it in store? Yes.
Here's what I learned. Fortunately, I didn't have many either. If I got a 2-star review, I thought about it all day. If 1-star review, I was up all night. But what I realized was if you click on that person and look at their reviews, 9 times out of 10, they give every restaurant a 1-star. I know from owning a restaurant myself, the guests aren't always aware. You may have had some sort of problem, right before they walked in. I'm sure that's happened to you.
I've been in utter chaos, like mopping, flooding waters while the restaurant is busy. So then after I get done with that, like I have to clean myself up and get back on the line and do what I was doing, dropping waffles or expoing or calling tickets or cooking food. And it's like, I'm sitting there like, if only people knew what just happened. And now I'm back here cooking. Like, I may forget to put the chicken in your omelet, and I am really sorry.
Sorry about that.
You know what I mean? So we have to deal with it whilst still giving this expert level of service that the customers are used to.
And it never happens at a slow time.
Never.
Right?
It never. I have never had a toilet back up during a slow service. Never. Not one time in my whole life. And it's always on a Sunday at 11 o'clock.
Right. So when you look up and you see that your restaurant's packed, you're just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah. So I try not to think about it, but it does. It happens at the worst times. You never know when the electric will stop working on a plug on a random day. Like the electric doesn't work. And I'm like, what?
If I had $1 for every time I said, now this has to
Yeah,
happen.
now, right now.
So for all the listeners out there that are guests in restaurants, often we're not looking for a pat on the back. Anyway, there you have it.
It makes for a good laugh later.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Yeah, that's right. It does, and that isn't taught in the culinary
It is not.
school.
It is not.
I'm just absolutely blown away by self-taught chefs. I'm not bright enough to have learned this myself. I'm telling you that. I have as much respect for a shrimp and grits dish as I do for a steamed sole beurre blanc with shaved truffles from Alba. Do you feel the same way?
So me, I love like a simple classic dish that's made very well.
Yeah.
So like a shrimp and whether it's shrimp and grits or whether it's biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
I do have as much admiration for like a simple dish because that's how I cook. I don't use a lot of fancy ingredients. Like I don't think I've ever used a truffle in my life.
Yeah.
I've never shaved a truffle,
right.
But I still make really good food.
Yeah, of course. I knew that's how you're going to be, but I always like to clarify it because you don't know how many times I've come across chefs, especially chefs that are maybe recently out of one of the culinary schools who act like God's gift to the world. That there's only one way, their way. You watch cooking shows?
I do. I have certain ones. I haven't been of lately, but over the years I have watched. My favorite was MasterChef.
Yeah.
And I really liked the Ultimate Baking Championship. I've watched a lot of Chop. I love Guy's Grocery Games, but I love the new one that he has, a Tournament of Champions. I watch it every year
because it
has all the top celebrity chefs battling each other.
Yeah.
And that one I do love a lot.
Yeah, those make me too nervous. I always put myself in the position and I go, could I have beat that person?
No, I think some of the stuff that they make, and I'm like, I'm good at what I'm good at, but I also, I could learn a whole lot more.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. That is such a terrific reflection on the chef who's sitting before me today, because not too many chefs would admit that, and I have so much more respect for you, even now. What's your favorite pizza on the Grand Strand?
My favorite pizza is Scotto's.
Just had it for the first time a couple weeks ago. It's pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah. I do like it. I love the family that runs it. They make the best pizza, and it is like a 15-minute drive for me to get there, and I will go pick it up, and I don't care. They do not deliver, and you have to call. They're very busy, and sometimes I just go in for a slice. Okay,
last question, and it's always my favorite. It just cracks me up all the time. Your favorite fast food. You'd be embarrassed to tell a fellow chef about. Before you say anything, Chef Joe Bonaparte from the International Culinary Academy was on last week, and I asked him that, and it cracked me up. He said the dip that you make every Super Bowl with the melted Velveeta cheese and the canned Rotel tomatoes, and I was just cracking up because I love that kind of stuff too. But sometimes, in our business, you're afraid to admit. I've often said that if you're comfortable in your own skin as a chef,
I'm not afraid to admit what I'm about to tell you. My favorite thing to eat.
Good. Let's hear it.
The Taco Bell quesadilla. Okay. The chicken quesadilla with extra chicken, well done, with a Pepsi. And I had it last night.
I swear to you, first of all, Taco Bell is my wife's go-to for that kind of food. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we could talk for half an hour just about this. It's not Mexican food, but I like it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But I swear to you, this is the God's honest truth. That item is my favorite item at Taco Bell.
And I had a really long day yesterday. It was cooking for competition. So I was exhausted. I did not even want to look at the kitchen. I didn't want to know a kitchen existed after that. So my girlfriend was like, I'm going to go to Taco Bell. And I was like, you won the day. I was like, I got 2 chicken quesadillas and a power bowl. And I went ham on it last night. And I did not care. I went to sleep so happy.
Oh, that's great. Well, Chef Jamie Daskalis, you are an absolute gem. Thank you so much. I could talk with you for hours about this. I hope you'll come back.
Oh, I definitely will.
But in case you're from Mars and don't know who Chef Jamie is, she's the owner of Johnny D's, Waffles, and Benedict, all 3 locations, and recently opened the tasting room on 9th in Myrtle Beach. Before we go, tell us a little bit about that.
So the tasting room on 9th is, I have a business partner, Lisa. She's a sommelier. She loves wine, and I've been friends with her for about 8 years now. It's upscale wines, but downtown vibes. Because we want everyone to be able to come as they are. You want to get dressed up and come, great.
Yeah.
You want to have a little bit more casual day, that's great too. We have cocktails, we have wine, and the cocktails are, really crafted.
Yeah.
The wines, Lisa spends so much time, like literally picking out every single wine that we serve at that bar. And she does an excellent job pairing foods. We just started wine tasting dinners with Chef Robert. He works for U.S. Foods, and he's helping us out, and he does these dinners, and it's just exceptional, and he absolutely loves it. And he actually brings someone to help him who's learning from him, about these dinners. So it was really fun to watch. But it's just a great new place, a new addition to downtown, and everyone that comes is really loving it there. So we're happy.
How does that work? Do you come up with the dishes and she pairs the wine to it, or vice versa?
Oh, yeah. So what normally happens is either if I'm doing a dinner with her or I'm with Chef Robert, it's the same. The menu gets crafted first, and then she comes in and pairs the wines. Yeah.
Wow.
And she does some really interesting wine pairings. Like I have a couple of friends, Amy, actually, Amy.
Yeah,
she
Amy
went to one of
Everhart.
the dinners, and she was saying, they were, her and another, Sophia, who is the Content Food Critic. They were saying like the pairings were very unique.
Mm.
And that's, it was like very memorable for them. And that's exactly what we want.
So are you open every night?
We're open Wednesday through Sunday, and we open at 4:00, and we close at 9, but it's Friday, Saturday, we're open till 10. And we have a menu. We have hot, a couple sandwiches. We have a very awesome charcuterie board, which you can kind of build your own. You can get the chef's board. And then we have a couple flatbreads and like bread, it's just stuff to munch on.
Yeah.
But it's very social. It's very social. You come, get a couple things, share with your friends, talk, drink, and everyone has a lot of fun when they come. That
sounds absolutely wonderful. And once again, that is Chef Jamie Daskalis' recent new restaurant, and it's called The Tasting Room on 9th in Myrtle Beach, and I can't wait to go. I'll be heading there as soon as possible. Once again, Chef Jamie, thank you so much for coming in. So appreciate it. How about Chef Jamie Daskalis? Boy, does she have some energy, man. Guess it takes that amount of energy to have 4 successful restaurants. Man, what a chef. She's very impressive. Anyway, for the restaurant commentary this week, and I say restaurant singularly because I'm covering a restaurant and the pizza that they serve. Really good. It's called Nonna's or Nonna's Italian Restaurant and Pizza. They are at 2132 Oak Heart Road in Myrtle Beach. So I'm actually killing 2 birds with 1 stone today, doing a pizza commentary and a restaurant commentary. The chef owner, Dom, has over 25 years experience in the restaurant business and I love this, he has relied on the help and input from his mother every step of the way. How cool is that? I can remember actually this one time when I was working for Tom Cruise, we were up their place, top of the Rocky Mountains, and I was stuck for this recipe. I couldn't remember a couple of the ingredients, and it was one of my mother's recipes, so I jumped on the phone and called her, and she gave me the ingredients, and it went off without a hitch. So that line is very near and dear to me. But let me tell you something about Nonna's. First off, we met my cousin Donna and her husband Jeff there. They suggested meeting there. I had heard about this place for quite some time now, so I was glad that they had suggested that. And if Donna and or Jeff recommends a place, it's usually pretty darn good because they know food. They know food very, very well. Plus, they've lived here for about 40 years, so they know what they're talking about. And I'll tell you something. They didn't miss it with this one. This is a good place, good Italian restaurant. To be perfectly honest, I've had my fill of Italian food as far as the show is concerned for a little while now. Been to a number of them, was looking to try something else. But I thought, hey, let's check it out. I've heard so much about it. First off, the pizza. We ordered regular dishes, but since I'm on this pizza mission, I wanted to make sure that I tried it. I wasn't that impressed with it. Now, I've said before that I'm not going to speak badly about a pizza place. I just won't comment on it. However, and I'm not saying it was bad. It wasn't exceptional. but I can say that because the rest of the menu was. Now, as far as the pizza is concerned, they've got a couple different types. They've got the New York style, and then they jump over to the margarita, which seems to be the same thing, only they put fresh mozzarella on it, and that's fine. Like I said, the rest of the menu was phenomenal. They have the typical appetizers that you would see at most Italian restaurants, although a couple things jumped out at me. They have as an appetizer pasta fagioli, which is the little tiny pasta with usually cannellini beans, I think. I didn't try it, but it sort of jumped out at me because I don't typically see that on Italian menus. So when I go back, and I will go back, I'm going to try that. Also, they have mussels marinara, one of my favorite. And I don't see that on every menu here in Myrtle Beach, in the Grand Strand. Another dish that jumped out at me, and I had to have it, it is a linguine carbonara with clams. I thought, wow, combining two of my favorite pastas in the same dish, and it was spectacular. My wife it's very interesting, as I'm key on the fresh fish thing because I love to fish. I'm a fisherman. One of their specials was, they called it a fresh caught salmon over lemon risotto. And I don't think that there's a place to catch salmon within 500 miles from here. But that didn't bother me. Once that dish came and my wife let me taste some of it, it was absolutely delicious. Salmon done beautifully, placed on top of really nicely done risotto, had a nice lemony touch to the risotto. I love when they do that. They combine the typical addition of lemon that is often served on top of the fish, but this they did underneath in the risotto was really, really good. And my cousin ordered veal parmesan, and I think that this particular veal parmesan was a special for the evening. It was kind of loud in there, so it was hard to hear, but it actually came bone on. It was a veal chop, and the veal chop was so big that they butterflied it for them and split it between my cousin and her husband, and it was really, really good. I can't wait to go back to this place. Once again, that is Nonna's Italian Restaurant. They are at 2132 Oak Heart Road in Myrtle Beach, and can't wait to go back. And coming up after the little break, we have an interesting guest on. She is a content food critic. Different from a food critic, different from a foodie. She's going to explain to us the difference between all three of those terms. And this woman is like super bright and really knows her stuff. Her name is Sophia Edens, and she is known as the content food critic of the Grand Strand. Terrific woman. And welcome back to Talking About Food. I've got a very, very interesting young lady in the studio today. She goes by the Content Food Critic, which I can't wait to ask her about that last word, critic. It's hard for me to imagine any kind of critique of anything in this area. Anyway, and her name is Sophia Edens. You see her on Facebook, Instagram. And also, she is the multimedia consultant at My Ori News. I follow her wherever she goes. She's got the coolest posts. I could talk for an hour with her about how she chooses the places that she writes about. Sophie Edens, welcome to Talking About Food.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Trust me. My first question for you, you obviously have this incredible, and this word gets used a little too much nowadays, but it fits, passion for the food industry. Why did you choose, you and I were just having a conversation about off the air about Mel Gibson, and when I think of your line of work, Hollywood comes to mind because there's in front of the camera and behind the camera. I imagine you behind the camera.
Absolutely.
Why did you choose that side?
It's fun. It's unique. I like getting to talk to the chefs. I like getting to talk to the waitresses, the hostess, the bartender. I like knowing their story. They're kind of the ones running the show anyway. So I like to know that.
It is a show, isn't it?
It is. It's a presentation.
I owned a restaurant for 9 years before we moved here. And the employees and I, we would talk about that every day. It is dress rehearsal before the doors open up. You're like a film critic, only in the food world.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you like to cook yourself?
I do.
Yeah.
My mom started me from a young age. Home cooked meals pretty much every day. We would have leftovers the next night. Yeah. So
Are you good?
I like to think I am.
No, you know if you are.
I do.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm good.
Yeah, you're good, aren't you? I could tell. You don't enjoy it enough to be in front of the camera.
No.
How did you know that? Because before you go, because the allure of pleasing people through food is very intense.
It is. If I'll start from the beginning, where this passion came from, I started reading New York Times food critics.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to be different than the average creator. So I wanted to stand out in front of people. And I know I have a lot of work to do to become a full critic. Right now, I'm kind of in that stage of food writer. So I'm not a professional critic yet, but I hope to be.
Can you tell me what is the difference between a foodie, a food writer, and a food critic?
Absolutely. The foodie is kind of a generic term relative to a type of influencer that exists, consisting of people who have a passion for food, taking photos of food, and sharing the restaurants they adore.
That's the foodie.
That's the foodie.
Okay.
And they typically don't write, but some of them do like to explore writing, which then leads into the food writer.
Okay.
This term is given to those who take themselves just a step below a critic, which is kind of what I value myself as, just in between. And the food writer can tell a story with their review, including general commentary, trends, and their food experiences. So it's kind of the foodie, but elaborating a little bit more.
Right.
And then the food critic, the more notable, the elite, and the intelligent, they're knowledgeable beyond their writing and reviewing, cooking methods, ingredients, and they must be an incredible researcher. They are elite because their background is specific in a career within restaurants. The most notable critics are chefs, and their style of reviewing holds weight in the restaurant industry. However, they don't have to be a chef.
Do you ever get pushback from chef restaurant owners?
Pushback how?
Well, you're kind of in the driver's seat. I mean, the bigger you get, the more you could literally make or break a restaurant. I'll speak for myself.
Absolutely.
When LA Times critics would come into the restaurant, I just cringed because I would think to myself, what the hell do you know?
I think that's why I read Ruth Reichel. I met her, and she's absolutely wonderful, very down to earth. And the way she writes is very much a story. So when I read her work, I knew that I wanted to really implement that kind of atmosphere in my writing. The story, like we talked about, it's a show. And my story starts the moment I walk through the door.
Yeah.
How I'm greeted, the lights, the music, what's playing, the floor, what everything looks like.
I agree with your theories and your positions on food, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit. You said at Zayton, the food is undeniably good, delicious even. What you're paying for here is more than just the food, it's the experience.
Absolutely.
Can't that be said about any restaurant, whether it's fine dining right down to a food truck or
of course.
Mom and pop place?
Oh, absolutely. My thing as far as what restaurants I choose, it's because I've been learning from these professional critics. I like to hit places 2, 3, 4, and 5 times before I actually publish a review. And if I haven't, I usually state that at the top. But yes, absolutely. That can apply to food trucks, small mom and pop shops. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I had this conversation, I think it was when I had Chef JK on from Oak Prime, that, you know, so much of it is the experience. And a lot of people don't get that. He and I went into this whole thing about being intimidated. I would say a good portion of the public doesn't go to high-end restaurants, not just because of the cost, but because they're intimidating. They don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And I was saying to Chef JK, if it was known that you could go in and sit at the bar, just have a drink. Because I said to him, I said,
Yes.
can you have just, can you sit at the bar and just have appetizers? He says, you could sit at the bar and just have a drink,
Mhm.
or you could have it. Do you feel that way? That's a nice introduction if somebody's
Yes.
intimidated by it?
Especially with the role I like to lead, with my mission being appetizing and affordable. That's actually why I'm so limited to the reviews I write, because I do want to visit multiple times, and it's a lot of money I'm spending as a freelance writer. So I think it's a great introduction for anybody to just sit down and try little bites here
Right.
and there.
Most of those types of places are very, very welcoming and
yes.
understanding, right?
Oh, more than happy. And the experience with Zayton was so unique. I had never gone to Turkey. I've never experienced leaving the country. It was really, really nice to get to know the wait staff and have them help me and learn how to properly eat their breakfast the way they do, and their coffee. I mean, their coffee is
Right.
amazing. So yes, when I'm talking about experience, that is what I'm finding that connection here with
Yeah.
these people.
And I said to Chef JK on that episode, how much do people pay to go to a show or a sporting event? To turn around and say, oh, no, that restaurant's too expensive. It takes back to what you had originally said in that quote is, it's an experience.
Mhm.
It's a 2 to 3 hour experience if done right.
Exactly.
Have you ever absolutely hated a place?
Yes.
you know I would never ask you on the air what place that was, or place more than one?
One. Only one so far.
Hated it.
Hated.
Can you tell me, without giving it away, what you hated about it?
Cleanliness, lack of cleanliness.
Well, that's a biggie.
Increase in price 30% in a year of every menu item without updating the dishes that were served. They were no different. Tourist trap.
When you dined there, did they know who you were?
They knew I was a creator. They
Mhm.
didn't, I don't think they knew who I was entirely. I don't think they knew my website. I don't think they knew the work that I wrote or how honest I am.
Yeah, they'd have cleaned that place up a little bit if they
Oh.
if they knew that. Wow. It's interesting. You hit on a topic that I don't have in my notes to talk to you about, but I'd like to, and that is food influencers. I'm a little bit hesitant to speak with them. I spoke with Amy Everhart, the Myrtle Beach foodie babe, because I know of her background. But my main concern was her character. In the beginning, I was keeping food influencers at arm's length because of the fact that they often will just give great reviews to the
Yes.
restaurants that pay them. I know for an absolute fact that Amy isn't that way, and which is why she was on the show. Have you, I love stuff like this. Have you ever gone to a restaurant, clean, great service, nice menu, and the food just sucked?
Yes.
How many?
Maybe 3,
Yeah. So out of 10 places, how many don't you like typically?
maybe 2 or 3 of them.
20%, 30%?
Mhm.
That's pretty good.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great.
We're blessed to have a lot of really wonderful chefs here. I mean, it's diverse. I mean, you have various backgrounds of chefs running various backgrounds of restaurants. It's just incredible.
And I think we're kind of at that tipping point where we're starting to grow here. And you've got a lot of people of an age group that aren't necessarily interested in new things. But with everybody moving here, it brings a lot of younger people, which I feel the millennials, in my opinion, is what changes the direction of food trends. What are some of, and these are basic questions, but I'm sorry, I'm interested. What are some of your favorites? Give me a high-end restaurant that's one of your favorites, and then, for lack of better words, a low-end restaurant.
Tasting room on the 9th. That's what I would put as high end. You've got Lisa Lee, who is a wine proprietor. She's very talented. But when I'm in her presence, I feel like I'm finally understanding wine and food.
That's an interesting thing because I've often talked about plate presentation and how I'm not smart enough to know why something is attractive, but I know when it is. And often I find that the best chefs are the ones that know how to walk that thin line between being too sparse and going over the top where it looks like some piece of modern art.
They host once a month, like wine pairing dinners. Right now they have Chef Robert Kaufman. He's so talented. And it was interesting to attend one of these wine pairings because for me, you know, I don't really want to put pretentious work out there because it's not like the average family can afford these kinds of meals. I really try to write from the bottom of my heart and say, hey, this is what's appetizing. And this was what's affordable for your family when you're moving here, when you're living here, when you're traveling here. But this experience was something very unique. It didn't make me feel like I was a snob. It made me feel very welcomed. And I was able to learn so much more. And Chef Robert was talking to me and he was saying he missed making pretty food.
Yeah.
And there's a difference when you see a well-organized plate because that's what the chef was inspired to do. And then a plate that was also well decorated, but not as tweezer.
Yeah, I think the word that you used, which was precise, was decorated. Yeah, there's a difference. So now a lower end restaurant, one of your favorites.
I don't know if I would call it lower end, but it is Salty Brews in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The Chef Jason, his wife has celiac disease, so the entire menu is gluten-free.
Wow.
And I've never needed to eat gluten-free.
Right.
But it was unique and I liked it.
Yeah.
So I just go every day for lunch. Chef Jason is very, very kind. He takes his time. He makes all the sauces. He's very precise with making sure there's no cross-contamination.
And it's also a brewery?
No.
What was the name?
Salty Brews, but I believe Brew is their dog.
Oh, wow.
Because it's the dog logo. Yeah. But they do have a lot of local brews on tap.
Oh, that's cool. Would you say that if you didn't know it was gluten-free, you wouldn't have noticed?
Not really. I never leave there feeling sick.
Yeah.
Ever. So it's just nice.
Well, I hope that most places you don't leave feeling sick. That'll be the next show. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that... Oh. Man, I wanted to puke after that place. That was excellent, man. That was great. All right, staying on that topic, and the last question. Your favorite go-to dish that the multimedia consultant at MyOri News and owner blogger of the Content Food Critic would be embarrassed for people to know. Dish, not fast food place. I always give the example so that the guest doesn't feel bad. My wife and I, our favorite go-to trashy dish is Velveeta macaroni and cheese.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good choice. Sometimes I just eat popcorn for dinner.
Yeah, what kind?
Kettle corn.
Oh.
Orville Redenbacher kettle corn.
Kettle corn, that's so good. Did you ever have that one? It comes in like the cone. Yeah, it's called Popcornopolis. It's shaped like it's packaged like a bouquet of flowers, and the racks that they're sold on have those little round metal rings that they fit right into. Oh,
that's fascinating. I'm gonna have to give it a try.
It is just so good. Sophia Edens, the Content Food Critic. You have an absolute command of the English language. I wish I could speak half as well as you. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram. She is also the multimedia consultant at MyOri News, and she is fantastic to listen to, and so grateful that she came into the studio today on Talking About Food. Thanks so much, Sophia.
Thank you.